22nd, 2022 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Joyce, Rob, I think everybody's all in favor, so we're done on that one. Adoption of minutes from the last May 10th meeting were provided. I guess I should put them forward first. A recommendation that the minutes of the Finance Advisory Committee meeting be held May 10th be adopted. A mover and seconder, please. Joyce and Michael. Any comments or revisions being proposed for those minutes? Nope, seeing none. Okay, all in favor? Approve those minutes. Thank you. Everybody's all in favor. Any public comments? None? Thank you. Updates. First point, 4.1. Liam, you're going to provide an update on the capital projects.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. So the fire hall project, as you may have noticed, is getting very near completion. And there's an element to the fire hall project we've talked about before, which is what we're calling the Heritage Fire Truck Shed. And the really cool thing about the shed is that the wood from the shed comes from the very large Douglas fir tree that was on the site that we were able to honor and respect by having that wood milled and put to good use, not just on the fire hall project, but that's the first project that we're using the wood from that big tree for. The wood was milled by high school kids at West Van High, with some Bowen kids being part of it, with the assistance of Greg Cormier, who is our building inspector, but also the carpentry and woodworking teacher at West Van High. The project's really neat because it also has in-kind contributions from Bowen Concrete, roofing company that's based on the island, or at least the owners are, architectural design, engineering work, use of trades, high-up truck, and tremendous amount of local support, and all being done in kind to make this heritage shed. So that's pretty exciting. That will be completed shortly after the fire hall itself. The fire hall is looking like we're going to be moving in later in August. And so it's been pushed back a little bit from the last time we spoke. I think it was targeted for June. So it's been pushed back a little bit. Their sort of real final push is the concrete pour for the apron onto the front of the doors for the trucks and the front steps. And once that's done, then it's basically move-in ready. And then we'll be focusing on landscaping and tidying up the exterior of the building. And so we will be considering what we're calling like a grand opening or a public open house later in September for that facility, once everything is all said and done. Probably early September. But so that's pretty exciting. And then on the multi-use path, that project has taken a bit of a back burner position as we have advanced the necessary works for the stormwater drainage project on Trunk Road. If you've been in the Cove, you will no doubt be aware of that project. And so the multi-use path will pick up again once we've completed the underground work of replacing that failed culvert on the north side of Trunk Road. And it's anticipated that that could happen at the end of August or beginning of September. We really want to get the pavement done before the rain starts. And but the sort of, that's a good segue into the Trunk Road storm sewer project, which we made a conscious decision to self-perform. So we didn't put it to tender. We decided that we could actually, we do have the skills and expertise on staff, and that they were keen to step up and take this more complicated project on. And it's proving to be quite successful. They're about 25% complete, maybe a little more, and they're moving along at a great clip. And it's really neat to see the team working. We had one new staff member to join our organization just a couple of, probably 2-3 weeks ago. I can't remember her last name, Kendi, but she joined the Public Works roads crew, and she was out there cutting trunk road with a concrete saw. Like, this is a big tool that is very powerful, and it was just really neat to see. And so anyway, I'm quite impressed with how well that project's going, and it's saving us quite a bit of money by doing it in-house. But what they want to do is, once they have all of the pipe replaced, they'll get BA Blacktop to then provide a quote on the asphalt for doing both the road and the multi-use trail. There probably won't be the savings that we thought we were going to get on the multi-use trail. Like, originally we thought we were going to come under budget. The multi-use trail portion, though, is 100% grant funded, so we're okay in that department. But just the cost of asphalt is going up dramatically, and so we're probably going to just break even on that one.
Okay.
You'll also have noticed the Grafton Road culvert replacement project is also moving along, and so it's a lot of activity in and around the cove, but I'm actually quite impressed at how well traffic is still flowing and moving. Yes, there are times when there's quite a backup, especially for Bowen, but ultimately I think things are going fairly well. The biggest challenge I've seen with traffic with all of these projects in the cove is actually the unloading of the ferry, and I'm not sure how we can better educate the public to merge better and merge further up Trunk Road and not
Good luck.
merge. I know, right? And to not merge at the library. Everybody's merging right after they get off the ferry, and it just backs it all up. If
Move
everybody
the merge sign.
It's going to be over pretty soon.
Yeah. So,
There's a merge sign right there at the library. Move it further up the road.
yeah. Well, I think you want to give them advance warning that they need to merge. But anyway, we can all help educate by, when we come off the ferry, rather than merging right away, you stay at the spot where you would have merged in, you stay parallel with that car, and you carry on right up to the cone. So we'll get through it as Rob.
You mean like everywhere else?
Yeah, exactly. Although the East Coast, they don't do that. They merge as soon as possible, and they never. I drove me bonkers.
You have to pass the test on Lionsgate Bridge.
That's right. There you go. The Library Cultural Corner took a pause for a while. There was not a lot of activity there, in part because they were, I think it was some design changes that they were having to make, and they did say it was related to concrete. Although Bowen has been lucky where we didn't have an impact to concrete. Like, the Lower Mainland had no concrete pouring for several weeks because of the strike with concrete, but Bowen Concrete kept moving, and so they may have just had a scheduling challenge with getting the concrete ready. So you'll see the forms right in front of the library and the Hearth Gallery, and so they're ready to start pouring soon for that, which will be really exciting, as well as pouring the pads for multiple benches in and around the library. We're also moving forward with the wastewater treatment plant project, and we've done the bulk of the earthwork that was required to dig a large hole where the inflow tank will be placed. And the same thing, we're waiting. The next step is concrete. So there's a lot hinging on concrete these days. And once the concrete gets poured for that project, then it's really about equipment installation, and so that project is moving well. It's on schedule as well. And the Cove Bay Water Treatment Plant project continues to be delayed, but we did hire a third-party engineer to work with the design engineers as well as the treatment supplier. And I told you about this at the last meeting. And they are very close to having a finalized plan, which would everybody should agree on as to, okay, these are the elements that must be completed to make the plant fully 100% operational. And so there's been a fair bit of back and forth between the parties, but I'm told as of this week that it's very close that we could have a plan hopefully approved and accepted by all parties by the end of next week, because there's an opportunity with another project that's happening in Tunstall Bay where we're doing a reservoir project in Tunstall Bay, and the company that's doing that project is Industra, which is the same company that did the treatment plant construction. And so what we're hopeful for is that if Industra is able to, if we're able to finalize the plan for the Cove Bay treatment plant before Industra completes the work in Tunstall Bay, we can just keep them on island and then roll them right into this next phase of the Cove Bay project. And then the final project I want to give you an update on is the community center. And so we're looking to be around the 9%, 10% completion point at this stage. And like any big project, the most challenging and difficult part is getting up out of the ground. That's when you have the most unknowns. And that's where a lot of the cost of the project actually goes. And so we did have some additional costs for site preparation that we knew we would incur, but they were coming in higher than we anticipated, especially some of the costs for the blasting and for some of the work that had to be done to the north of the site for preparation of a septic system for our sewer management, as well as our rainwater and stormwater management for the site. In the discovery phase of doing the earthwork, we discovered that the soccer field has a tremendous amount of seepage that flows out of the field and across the road, which is going to the north parking lot that we're building. And that the seepage wasn't being channeled into any kind of a conduit or pipe because how it was constructed. And so we had to resolve that problem as well. And so there's, these are those unknowns that you come across. We're also in a position where we're wanting more scrutiny on the volumes of the earthwork that was conducted, because when the volumes were shared with myself, I got a bit skeptical, and not so much skeptical about the volumes, but also about the price associated with it. So we're doing a bit of back and forth with the civil engineers and the vendor to try to get to clarity on those prices, because while we do have contingencies which could cover off this price discrepancy, it's a significant amount of money for earthwork that was above and beyond what we planned for, that would consume close to 20% of our contingency. And I'm not comfortable using that much contingency so early in the project. And so we've been digging in on that for about a month, and I've told the civil company that I want a report that is crystal clear, that could be defensible for a third-party analysis if I'm not comfortable with the statements that it has. So we should be having that meeting next week, so we'll get more clarity on that. But you'll see a lot of concrete work has happened, and there's still quite a bit more concrete to occur for that project. And right now they're focusing on you'll see a lot of rebar going in on the north, or sorry, the southern wall, the one that you see right coming up Trunk Road. And that's because that wall is going to be supporting a suspended slab, which is the large multi-purpose room, the theater room. And so they need to put in a significant amount of rebar to support that structure, support that slab. And And once that slab is poured and all of the on-grade slabs poured, then the exciting part begins where they start to frame up and build the envelope of the structure. That we're hoping will start in September. So we're hoping to have all of the concrete poured and completed by September. So again, concrete is the theme here, and so and we're really lucky to have Bowen Island Concrete on working on all of these projects. So that's quite a bit of information on quite a number of projects. So I'll open it up to any questions.
Joyce?
I've got one frivolous question and one not so frivolous question. Which do you want first?
The not so frivolous.
Okay. For the wastewater treatment plant, we were going to need to negotiate to get some land from Crippen. I don't know what happened about that.
That land requirement is for phase 2. And
okay.
So phase 2 has been put on hold for like at least a 5-year period. It could be accelerated if we were able to determine a financing strategy that we can actually comfortably advance. But part of the financing strategy, a large part of the financing strategy hinges on a development cost charge, and we need to secure agreement from the development community on that. And we want to get that development cost charge bylaw in place before we start to advance the project any further. And so we do have time to continue to negotiate with Metro on that. It's basically a 100 square meter piece of land, but fairly small. So Metro is, somewhat sympathetic to our needs, but they don't let parkland go easily. So, yeah.
Okay, and now for it's semi-frivolous. I noticed that the fire hall doors are white. And I don't know whether that is covering that's going to be revealing something else, but it's not frivolous when I think about maintenance of a white door with big trucks going in and out. So I'm concerned, are the doors going to be white? And if they are, what are the maintenance costs associated with that?
I don't know. I'll have to look into that. I don't know if they are going to be white. And if they are white, I don't anticipate the maintenance costs are significant. The odd spray down, like the ambulance garage doors are always white. And I've never heard that to be a significant maintenance concern. In terms of the water use, Joyce, you'll be happy to hear, and it hasn't been formalized, but we are going to install a rainwater catchment at the fire hall. And so thank you for pressing on that. And so we do have an extra tank in our possession at I think it's at either the Public Works yard or fire hall number 2. I don't know the size of the tank, but we're going to use it. At any rate, we're going to install the tank, because as we were going through the final touches, we were looking at like the downspouts and where we were going to connect those to the perimeter drain, and it just seemed like, oh well, actually this would be really easy to just connect up to a tank. So
Perfect.
We'll use that tank water to wash the white doors.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Great, thank you. Any other questions for Liam regarding the projects? Rob?
Yeah, this is more just a general comment, and that is really good to see how quick these projects are moving forward. Like, it's amazing when we sort of sign off on council on them, and then a week and a half later, there's pipe already on the side of the road, and they're going at it. And I've been chatting with some of the work crew. Super happy that we're doing this in-house, especially the one along the trunk road, because that's actually a pretty big one. Like, if we can pull that off, we can probably pull off a lot of stuff on island. And if we're already saving money and building up the expertise, and it looks like the guys were doing an amazing job. I was looking at them work, they were going to town and it looked good. So just hats off to you and your team on that, Liam. And it definitely doesn't go unnoticed, and happy to see that. And, you know, the blessing in disguise with the MUP is that we caught the pipe thing just before we built that, which would have been a real drag if we had built it all out and then 2 months later had to rip it all up again. So that was a bit fortuitous on our part, moving it all together. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Rob, any other comments? I agree. That's a win-win situation, and I think that's excellent for the community.
I've got my hand up, Fred.
Oh, sorry. Okay, Allison.
I guess it's very nice to know they're all building and you can see that. The question I have is, what was the budget for the projects, and where are we on the projects with respect to how much have been spent?
So all the projects are within budget, and so far, all barring the community center, I forgot to mention with the community center, all of them are on schedule. And so I don't have the specific numbers in front of me to share with you, but I can say that with confidence. The community center project is within budget, but the schedule is shifted. So we did get an updated full project schedule from the vendor last week, and they identified a substantial completion date August 24th, which is 1 month later than what was originally discussed. And so at this point, we need to dig in a little more to understand what's causing that delay. But we also want to be very careful with that project to not to be, like, for the municipality to not be the cause of any delays. And so I do get a little worried that some of the changes, like the septic, may be causing some of that delay, because any delay that we are responsible for, then we are on the hook for paying for. And so the big cost in delay claims really is around insurance and bonding, and not so much that the project is delayed. Like, I personally wouldn't be too fussed if the project is delayed by a month or two. Like, that's not going to disrupt things terribly, but it will cost us a lot if it's our fault. So we still have to understand why their rationale for the delay. And we don't want to be on the hook for any delay claims. We've not received any delay claims, which is a good thing. Knock on some wood, but we'll keep you posted if we do.
Okay, thank you.
And the last question was with respect to the sewer plant. Have they installed the flow meter?
Oh, I don't know if that's gone in yet or not.
That's one of the crucial pieces we need to figure out.
Yeah.
What the problems are.
So we did a significant amount of work on what we know were leaky manhole, and we know that will result in improved or reduced inflow, and so that should increase capacity. And we have talked with Urban Systems about, like, you know, is there any value in doing an analysis at this stage to see about increased capacity? Or, but my understanding is that until we get significant sustained rain events and the ground is saturated, that we won't really know the true value of those repairs. And so we really do need to wait for the winter rains. But we have seen an improvement at the treatment plant and with the flows. So things are tracking in a positive direction there.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Saying none. Okay, thank you. We'll move on to a new business 5.2, investment strategy review. Kristen, you provided a report, which was with
Did we
the
skip
agenda.
5.1, the mid-year operations expense update?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead. Yes, okay.
You're throwing
okay.
me off, Fred.
Oh, okay. Let's do 5.1. Okay, mid-year operations expense update. Again, Kristen's also provided information. I don't recall that we've actually seen one like this before, and I really like it.
Okay, good. Yeah, actually, that's helpful, having some feedback from you about reporting formats and things. That's good to hear. If anybody else has
Yeah, no, I think this is
feedback on
like
it,
this
I'm
is
happy with it.
significant enhancement to the information we've been provided in the past, and I think it's great. So it's
Okay,
a super start.
great, awesome. June 30th, just so for a little bit of context on it. I would like to typically report quarterly to the finance committee and monthly to managers. I've just created some really simple one-shot reports that I can send out to managers monthly so they can monitor their operations budget. But for public reporting, I think that quarterly is the right time frame for that. So that's what I will intend to do, is report quarterly, except for that first quarter in March, where we're still finalizing the budget. Everything's up in the air, and it's really not meaningful, useful, or helpful information when we haven't even really finalized our budget at that point. So I have never traditionally, and I don't intend to report at the March. So typically June will be the first report that we can expect, and then September and kind of a interim one at December, and then final statements. So
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean,
yeah.
all the institutions I've been involved with have exactly the same situation, where the first quarter really doesn't tell you anything.
Yeah.
And but I think if you provide it on a quarterly basis to the committee, I think that's going to be quite positive and valuable to us as well.
Okay,
Appreciate
terrific.
it.
Thanks. I'll just start by looking on the revenue side. Of course, our taxation revenue has all been reported. We received most of our taxation revenue was paid on time, probably upwards of 75% of it has been paid at July 31st. So that's great for us, and we can start earning some interest revenue on our bank account balance now. Some of the revenue items, I'll just kind of speak to the big ones. There's a big variance not expected, but at this point, they relate to those fire and emergency department grants, some of the Fire Smart things. If we don't actually undertake those initiatives, then we don't get the grant revenue on the same side, but at the same time, we don't have those expenses on the offset. So they're kind of a net zero if we don't get those revenues. I tend to be very conservative, and I would like to plan for kind of a worst case scenario. So I always tend to kind of say, oh, let's just say we won't get that, and where are we going to be? Because I'd rather have a pleasant surprise at the end of the year than trying to scramble and find money. So donations and grants, there's a variance showing there, but if it doesn't come in, it doesn't matter, because the expenses are not going to be incurred on the other side. There was a big variance in the tax penalties and interest revenue line item. Again, I planned very conservatively that we would be looking at about only $65,000 in tax penalty and interest revenue from late unpaid taxes. At this point, it's tracking at about 115,000. So I do expect to reverse some of those penalties as deferred applications are approved. But at the same time, we will continue to earn interest on arrears and delinquent taxes that are unpaid through December 31st. So I do believe that $115,000, which is about $50,000 more than budgeted for, will hold till the end of the year. And then lastly, the big variance there is that return on investment line item, which we do have an agenda item in 5.2 to discuss further. So I have conservatively put in a realized loss on investment revenue of $100,000, and hopefully some decisions that we make now or hopeful for market recovery will mitigate that. But worst case scenario, if we have to plan for a loss, I think it's prudent just to make everybody aware of that now. So overall, I do believe that our revenues will be down by about 200,000, most of that offset by savings in the operating expenses side. So I'm not concerned that we're going to negatively impact our surplus in any way. So going to the expenses side, I do expect that most of the budgets will be fully spent or have a few savings in there. There is a expenditure that's over. It's in the finance department, surprisingly, but that's a couple of related to the professional support assistance that we had contracted in the prior year. They ended up coming in, those fees for the work to finalize the last year's statements came in. There was an extra month of contracted services that I didn't know that we were bound by contract to pay. I thought it was a kind of an open-ended contract that when we were done at the end of August, we could get out of it, but apparently we had to go through to the end of May. So that was just a piece of information that I had misunderstood. And then our audit fees due to extra work that the auditor needed to do to help us get through that audit period. That was about $16,000 higher. So all in all, we are expected to have this one-time hit of about $54,000 over budget by the end of the year. You can see in fire and emergency, there's a big offset savings there, and that's presuming that we don't go ahead with or get the grants to do the work in that department. That's where we will be, and it's offset by that reduced revenue. All in all, the other variances, I mean, they're quite, they're not very significant. Strategic planning is that's actually council's budget to do any of their, projects that come up throughout the year that they hadn't really anticipated. There's always a contingency there for that. So there are some things in that strategic planning budget that likely they're just not going to have the time to get to before the end of the council term. So I've just kind of expected that some of that budget is going to end up not being spent at the end of the year. So all in all, with the reduction to the revenue, but the offsetting and larger reduction to offsetting expenses at this point at June 30th in the year, it does look like our surplus position would be improved by about $25,000. So I'm very happy and comfortable with where we're at from an operating budget standpoint at this point. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Kristen. Any questions regarding this information? Seeing none, again, I'll reiterate my fact. I appreciate the reporting. And I also appreciate, sorry, Michael, go ahead.
Sorry, Fred. Kristen, thank you so much for doing this. I think this is just really adds clarity, and I know it's extra work, but boy, it lays it out and saves an awful lot of questions. And thank you very much. Hope it continues.
It's not extra work, Michael. That's what accountants do. We report.
I know, but it's good to see it in this. It's good to see it in this format. And bless you, you've managed to get it on one page.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know you like the one-page format.
Yeah.
Do I? Heck, you're right.
Okay, thank you. I'll ask Joyce and then Alice. Joyce?
I just want just again to say thank you, but also to say the reason why I didn't have any questions is because you answered them in your presentation. So thank you for that as well.
Okay.
Thank you. Allison?
I guess I'll just ditto what Joyce just said. Thanks, Kristen. It's really good to see this, and I totally agree. You don't need one for the month of March, but so it's good. And one of these days we'll see a capital financial update.
Yeah, it's a work in progress. So I will improve and expand as we go on. So
my only question, I guess, on a process perspective is all this work that Public Works is doing, the culverts and things that they're doing in-house. The culvert, if we contracted it out, would normally have been a capital item. So how are you tracking? What are you going to do with, are you going to charge the time that staff is spending to capital?
So at this point, like, we'll talk about the Trunk Road stormwater, for
Yeah.
example. Okay, so at this point, the only expenses I'm showing against that project are about $60,000, which is likely
Right.
the cost of
But what
those
are you gonna
tubes
do
that we
with
see
that?
lying on the side of the road. Then there's the labor,
Yeah.
and I mean, it's not a requirement to charge labor to a capital cost, and there's a question there. Do you want it to be reflected in the capital cost? Or you know that you have to have these FTEs on your staff each year. Do you want to keep them in your operating budget, the cost of it, because you have to tax for them?
I'm just throwing it out as something we need to think about.
Exactly, and I kind of go back and forth on this all the
Yeah,
time.
I'd love to have something.
I don't like to reduce my operations labor because we have to cover for them year after year. So, and then putting the cost of the labor into the capital project, you're just going to see it in amortization. You're never actually going to really see the cost of that FTE. I kind of prefer to leave all of my FTE in one bucket so that I can see, you know, from year to year and have really good comparisons about what our operating cost for FTE is, because if we start taking chunks of that out and capitalizing it, it causes fluctuations in our FTE costs. And given that FTE is such a significant component of our budget,
Yeah.
personally, I feel it's more meaningful to leave it in the operations side. But it's an option. You can go either way. And it's certainly something that's a good and valid discussion to have.
Yeah, well, I don't know what others do, and maybe there's a threshold for the size of the project or something, but
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, Allison, that might
Yeah.
determine that, because you're not going to, the levels of those expenses are not going to fluctuate based on whatever projects are undertaken in a year, at least not materially. You have a core level of staffing that you have and expense. And if it's repeated year after year, to create it as a separate capital item to be allocated, I think you're just kind of making it more complicated than it needs to be.
Yeah.
By doing
well,
that.
it's just a
So
question.
you may want to establish that against particularly large projects, or set a threshold for that.
Well, and the other thing is, by doing the Trunk Road sewer, there's been other projects that would normally have been done that haven't been done. So I'm anticipating that do them and still do the regular road maintenance work. We're going to be asked for another person.
Yeah.
Rob?
Yeah, just to dovetail on Allison's point, and Allison, I'm really glad you brought that up, because we've been having to make an economic argument for hiring more road crew, and this is obviously a really good argument if we can come in under budget of what we would do pricing it out, and whether we have to separately account for that, I agree. It's probably easier just to do it in the FTE. But it would be good from an operational perspective to know that, hey, we're actually saving money by doing this in-house. And maybe we hire another crew, you know, instead of going out, and having a rough idea of, hey, if we had gone out privately, it would have cost this much. And look how much it cost us doing it in-house for the first year, for instance. We actually saved a lot of money. So I don't know if that's sort of like a back of the envelope sort of accounting thing that we do, but that we can at least make that argument to the public that, you know what, we're not just inflating our staffing, we're actually saving money by doing this, and making that, having that info there to back that up. So that's all my comment.
Yeah, maybe actually a way that it could be done is to always do the budgets with enough provision to contract it out. And then at the end of the year, we draw the line, we do the comparison, we say, look, we had this project budgeted at X. This is what it actually cost us because our labor's over here in the operating, and look at what, and we can track and measure and capture the savings that way.
And it'd be good to start that now that we're sort of starting to do this at the start, so we can have a good comparison. So I totally agree with you. I think that's great. If that's easy to do, that solves that problem.
Yeah, I think you can achieve it through reporting, and people will appreciate, I think, as well, what the way it's being approached. So
yeah, and
I think it'll work fine.
Yeah.
So that's good. Anyway, I think so. Anything else on this? I'll just make final comment. I appreciate the forecasting of projections to year end, and I appreciate from your comments what you're doing within the departments, and that I think is important for the community to understand as well. So that's good as it relates to this report. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
So nothing else? Okay, now we'll move on to 5.2. And I think I'm back the way I should go. This is the investment strategy review. Again, Kristen provided a report in the package, and obviously it's interesting times financially in terms of markets and interest rates and inflation and economics. And so Kristen, I'll ask you to please present on that as well.
Thank you, Chair.
Before we start, sorry, I'm going to mess you up again.
Yeah.
I just want to disclose, just so people are aware of it, that I am a director of First Credit Union. And just for the sake of transparency, I don't think it affects our discussion from a conflict point of view. But I just want you to be aware that I do have sort of an interest in money things as it relates to this. But unless we get sort of down into the weeds, I don't think there's an issue here in terms of discussion. I just say I want to be transparent about it. Thank you. Okay, so back to you, Kristen.
Thank you. I guess the point of me bringing this forward to the committee was to highlight the fact that we aren't immune from the volatility of investment markets, and with all of the with all of the uncertainty with the commodity markets and interest rates and what's going on in Ukraine, we too are experiencing some decline in our investment value. Under the community charter, there are very limited options for municipalities to invest in. So typically we invest in term deposits and guaranteed certificates of deposits with our credit union, with First Credit Union, or we put money into the Municipal Finance Authority, which is kind of the investment bank for all BC municipalities. Our investments, we currently have just over $8 million invested with the MFA. And it is split between two different funds. One of them is a very secure, just interest earning money market fund. We have about $2.5 million invested in the money market fund. And we have about $5.7 million invested in, again, it's a very stable fund, but it's a bond fund. And for the past, going back over the last year, the return on the bond fund has been negative. It's been about 4% negative. So it's time to look at that investment. It's time to decide, are we going to take those losses and move it? Are we going to hope for a recovery? I think that in an increasing interest rate environment, it's a good chance that a bond fund is going to return a positive investment in the future, but we don't know. And I don't want to make those decisions without getting some advice from people who have some experience in banking and investments. And that's why I just brought this for some feedback from the Finance Committee today. So I'll open it up to anybody from the Finance Committee who might have some thoughts or some ideas about what we should do going forward.
Allison?
Just a question. So the money market fund is not the one with the prospective losses, right? It's the bond fund.
Bond fund.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, are you going to need any of the money that's in the bond fund, or will the money market fund give us the capital we need?
To do the construction part, not enough of it. I may need to use some of the bond fund. There's only $2.5 million in the money market fund, so that's not enough to.
There's nothing sitting at First Credit Union.
Just current tax revenue. So my plan is to take that and put it either into certificate of deposits with First Credit or money market. I'm not concerned about what we've just collected in taxes this year. I'm just concerned about the 5.7 million that's sitting.
And did we collect tax money for any of these capital projects?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
I don't have the budget in front of me. When we did the budget, did we include the capital project, or is there any money raised by taxation for funding the capital projects?
No, just a contribution to a $500,000 contribution that is sitting there as contingency for the budget, in case there's a shortfall either in fundraising or we don't get that that other second grant. It's just sitting there. So again, it's not. It will just be invested.
Yeah, I guess, you know, my gut saying not to realize the loss on the bond fund, given what's happening with interest rates and everything, and to deplete the money market fund first. And then if we get to November or December, and, you know, I guess the issue is largely because I'm imagining our statutory reserve funds total about how much is in the statutory reserve funds. We're not dipping into those, so.
Well, we're dipping into them to do the capital renewal and replacement fund. We're drawing that down from 3 million down to 900,000. So.
Okay, well, don't get me going on that one. So, yeah, so, you know, I guess my gut's saying, I don't, you know, do we want to realize the loss? And who knows? I mean, the crystal ball as to whether, I mean, interest rates are going up, so theoretically the bond fund should improve, right, Fred and Michael? Yeah.
Eventually, but I mean, it's completely volatile market. We don't have any, nobody really knows for sure. So first, I think next, Joyce.
This is a really important discussion, and it's actually not a discussion I think that I've been a part of on Finance Committee, which is kind of surprising given the number of years I've been on it. Having been on National Community Foundations of Canada board, where we did a lot of discussion about all the investments in community foundations across Canada, as well as working at senior levels in BC government where investments were discussed. The one thing that I came to realize was that people like me need to ask experts as to their perspective of what's happening. And I certainly rely on those for our own investment. From what I know from my own personal investment right now is that the bond markets are not going to bounce back all that quickly. On the other hand, from experience over the years, it's not a good idea to take losses and walk away. So I would really recommend that we ask you to reach out to some very senior, very balanced perspective financial investment consultants to gain some insight. Perhaps the municipalities have people who can help us and we don't have to pay for it. But this is way too serious a conversation for, for me to have any value. And I would rather we brought in some outside people to have that discussion.
Thank you, Joyce. I'll just make one comment. I think, Kristen, you were at a meeting yesterday with CFOs of other municipalities. And that may have provided you a bit of perspective of what some of the common thinking is around that, at least as a point of discussion. Because I know for myself, I'm a pretty conservative guy as it relates to this stuff. So I'll just leave it at that point. But I just, if anything had come up at that might be of value here at this time.
Yeah, I was really excited about our quarterly meeting yesterday. The CFO for District of North Vancouver, Andy Wardell, was set to present on this topic directly. And for some reason, he was not able to attend and that conversation didn't take place. So I was very disappointed because that was the whole key reason I'm very interested in what's going on in the rest of Metro Vancouver. But I was very keen to hear what Mr. Wardell had to say. So and that topic was just kind of skipped over. So unfortunately that didn't take place and we don't meet again until September. So I don't want to leave this until September. I think what you're saying, Joyce, is a good idea. And I think that we need to act upon that before we make any kind of I don't want to make a rash decision, but I don't want to just allow it to continue at the same point. So
yeah, thank you. Michael?
Thank you, Fred. In essence, I take the same point of view as Alison. I would be. I realize it's a case almost of cash flow or drawdown, or when you need the funds. And at this moment in time, if this organisation resembles any others I'm involved in, to sell off at this point is something you would avoid doing. The issue with consultants is this: they're very welcome to look at your wristwatch for the time and then sell it back to you. The difficulty is there are so many macro events taking place in this world of ours that to be precise and sort of great wisdom is difficult. However, conventional wisdom aside says no. This is a rough patch. It's certainly not going to get better. Interest rates are going to rise again. There is no reason to suspect that the bond market won't benefit from that to some extent. However, there are other things whirling around out in this big world of ours, which make life very unpredictable. So whoever experts you consult with, they can only base their knowledge on previous experience, and we're in some ways here in new ground. So maybe just hold for a second. I think your most valuable assets, Kristen, frankly, are what your colleagues are doing around Metro. And I don't know whether, Liam, there is any way of getting some form of consolidation of financial opinions throughout the region to assist Kristen here, because every municipality, in essence, is very much in the same boat. We're not flying alone here. So I would say at the moment, we are certainly not going to throw some good investments overboard because they are temporarily disadvantaged. But and the best knowledge and the best insights we will get from our colleagues in other municipalities. So it is probably a hold the course at the moment. I don't see us moving precipitously in any direction right now.
Okay. I'll go to Allison and then to Liam and then to John. Allison, you're on mute.
Sorry, John had his hand up. Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, the advantage of bonds is, I mean, eventually you are paid out your full amount of your capital because they've, got to make all the bond payments. But has MFA, so at the UBCM, which is coming up in September, I think one of the topics, or there was a topic at the local government management one, but MFA's annual meeting, there's always a meeting of MFA at UBCM. And so I think we should make sure that somebody goes and hears what they have to say. Now, have they not sent out any information?
The last thing they sent out was their quarterly pooled investment fund market update. It was Q1, so it was for March.
Yeah. So they haven't,
yeah, so we're anxiously awaiting the June 30th one.
Okay, because I mean, most of the investment companies send out weekly newsletters, and I think I sent you one from RBC just for information.
Yeah, I mean, they have the monthly one that shows the monthly performance. I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, but that's more an actual rather than the
exactly. It's not any kind of insight into what you think the performance will be. No.
Gather up the insight from 3 or 4 of the large firms quite easily just by looking at their websites or finding somebody. Yeah. So.
Okay. Liam?
So I'm really pleased to hear this type of discussion taking place at the committee, and I really like the feedback we're getting. This is great. It's very beneficial. I have a good relationship with Peter Urbank, with the CEO of MFA, and I know Andy Wardell, worked with him quite closely back at my provincial days. So, Kristen, I think we could set up one-on-one meetings with both of them pretty easily. And Peter is the guy to talk to about investment strategies for local governments. And so, and yeah, I mean it is a tricky bit, but I do like Allison's point and what I've heard from others too about, bonds are stable, right? And especially, I'm not sure what what bonds we've actually invested in, like, you know. But I do think that even though the rising interest rates are beneficial, that won't yield the recovery for many years to come. Like it could take 8 years to gain back what we've lost. We can reach out to these other folks. So.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. John?
Fred, you know, on the bonds, and you know, I think we should reach out to someone because, you know, the bond funds themselves are going to continue to decline as interest rates rise. And we know there's a long-term interest rate trend going to occur. And also, unfortunately, there's a long-term inflationary trend, which is going to be driving those up too. So yes, in the long term, you will get higher returns for the bonds you hold. But of course, as interest rates raise right now, the bonds that we do hold now, their capital value has dropped quite a bit. So I think we need to look further into the bond fund and whether it's the right thing to hold in the next 5 years. You know, do you cut your losses now? I mean, if we hold individual bonds, perhaps, but we may well be in funds. And so those funds are going to go probably on a downward trend. And so really, you know, what we have today is what we have. We sell off today. We've just really, you know, yes, we're realizing a loss, but we've already suffering the loss. So I think yes, definitely we need some advice. The city of Burnaby probably holds huge amounts of funds.
Yeah, that's
massive. They're probably one of the wealthiest municipalities, and it'd be worth talking to their senior executive to get some insight on whether they actually have perhaps a investment advice committee of some sort that they rely on a regular basis. I mean, I think right now we're in a bit of a difficult situation because we're suddenly going out for advice, whereas we have some sort of structure that allows us to have advice on a regular basis. That's non-binding. Of course, we buy and sell, move money around as we choose, but it might be something we need to look at because our reserves hopefully are going to continue to grow. And we're, you know, $8 million is a substantial sum now, and hopefully someday it'll be 16 million. So, I think Burnaby is probably a good, quick resource right now.
Yeah, Burnaby is the wealthiest community in British Columbia, if not Canada. And I don't know their CFO. Their CAO actually has property on Bowen. And so, you know, we can reach out to Burnaby, but the majority of the large communities will be following a similar pattern. But yeah, that's a good point.
I think I have a comment at this point. I think, as I said, I'm fairly conservative as it relates to this type of things. I don't think we're looking to speculate on principal balances. We're looking to sort of maintain our ability to be impacted as little as possible as it relates to inflation, to get terms that allow us to retain our purchase power and the value of the money. In looking at this thing, and I think a point that John raises, it's worth what it is worth today. It's not, you're not going to start speculating, or we should not start speculating the market, because we've taken probably a fairly passive investment position up to this point in time, which is respectful of the resources and the amount of money that we're dealing with on the municipal level. I think it's a great idea to get advice. I think that Joyce brought forward and others have mentioned as well. But I think we could probably deal with this in a fairly short-term basis. So if there are meetings or information provided, that we could, in fact, have a meeting of this committee on fairly short notice to deal with the one specific subject to get it resolved. In other words, fairly quickly. And I guess my thought on that is, as it relates to the bond fund, I mean, I don't know what their strategy is. I don't know what their position is. And I think these are all things that are relevant to making those kind of decisions. But I would have concern about the potential for additional losses within the bond fund going forward. And honestly, sometimes you just have to realize your loss and move on, knowing that your principal balance position is protected. And if you're investing it as well as you can within the market, sometimes you just have to face that. I think we all know, for a lot of us, what our own investment portfolios have done the last little while. And I think a 2.81% reduction overall is not a bad thing. It's just the reality. And with the volatility in the future, I think it's a very important decision, and I appreciate it coming forward for this committee. But I think we can deal with it in fairly short order based on activities. And I would be happy to meet again to address this specific item in short term, because I agree with Kristen, you don't want to wait till September, October to make those kind of calls. So that's sort of my thought process on this. Does that make sense?
Yep, thank you.
Okay.
So Steph crafted a motion that the committee might want to consider.
So can I look it up here? Okay.
So while you're looking up the motion, oh, it's in the chat.
It's in the chat here, yeah.
So just so
Yeah.
John understands, the MFA bond fund we're in the short-term fund. So
The
most of
short-term
the
fund.
and I'm just looking at if you go on to MFA's website, you can actually see they've issued the bonds, and the people out there buy them. They're not buying, General Motors bonds and stuff like that. It's MFA bonds. And some of them are, there's a bunch that are due this year. So that new money is going to go out at the higher, those redemptions are going to go out at the higher
Yeah,
interest.
but those have also been priced into the value of the bond.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's
right now. It's already there.
what you were going to sell it for today. But yeah, so most of them have a 5-year term, some have 10, and there's the odd 20. But
The bonds are based on the capital investments throughout the province from the local governments that are members of the MFA. And
Yeah.
they go to Chicago and New York to sell them.
Yeah, but as I said, they're already priced to that position. So
yeah.
there-
They've got AAA ratings from
Yeah.
all the ratings. So it's yeah. So I mean, my druthers is to wait till after UBCM.
Yeah.
okay, but we have a proposed resolution here, and I'll read it out. Steph, you prepare this. That the Finance Advisory Committee recommend that Council direct staff to seek advice from the MFA and other local governments to help inform next steps regarding investment strategizing. That's a proposed resolution. I don't know if there's any thoughts on that.
Well, I don't think anybody is going to give you advice. They'll give you information and they'll give you their thoughts.
Yeah.
So I think you need to change the word advice to information.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised that MFA doesn't send out things like the large company, the investment houses do.
Yeah, and I think it's difficult for mid and smaller sized municipalities and local governments, because you just can't have those kind of dedicated resources.
Yeah.
And so it becomes a more passive investment strategy. And I think that, what's being proposed here is good. And I appreciate that Kristen's brought it forward.
Yeah, no, it's a good conversation. Metro's another source too.
Yeah. Michael?
Fred, I would certainly second that as the motion to move it on. And looking at what the big investment houses are sending out, it's all pretty boilerplate stuff. You're getting information, but you're certainly not getting direction.
Yeah,
Totally.
No, so to seek information rather than seek advice.
Yeah, I think that's good.
You moving up, Michael?
Yes, I'd second. I think Joyce has a.
Joyce?
I will happily second it if Fred is.
I think we're all in favor. Thank you.
Yeah.
And again, my comment is, I think we as a committee should be prepared to meet on short notice to address that in the next whatever period of time, once that information's been sourced, to assist Kristen in this process and look at what recommendations can be considered. Joyce?
Just a final comment on this. I'm pleased that we're doing this because we've never had this discussion before. I was actually quite shocked to see the relative weight of where our investments were. So it just, I just think maybe we need to have a regular discussion as to our investment strategy over time. I don't even know if we have an investment policy, an investment strategy reflected in policy. So it just seems to me this is immediate, but it's also bigger. I think we need to pay attention to this longer term.
So we have had these discussions in the past, Joyce, and previous iterations of this committee, maybe before you joined.
I think before me too.
A long time ago.
We're basically directed by the province to invest through MFA.
Yeah.
Oh, fine.
Yeah. And then they've got a particular set of funds. So it might be useful for everybody to go and have a look at the Municipal Finance Authority website.
Okay.
All I'm saying is we have made a choice as to which funds, and I don't know who made those choices. That's my
I
comment.
think we probably did back in the beginning.
Yeah.
Because of the, liquidity and, cash flow needs, but we haven't looked at it in detail recently.
Yeah. Well, we've had over 50 months of calm and peace where those kind of decisions really haven't had any impact.
Yeah.
But we're at the beginning of a stage where the next year, probably at least a year, maybe a year and a half, are going to be volatile. And that's like the first time in like 5 years. And so this is an entirely different experience. And that's why it brings to light the fact that we should have, again, these kind of discussions. And I appreciate that. So it's just part of what we need to do and what we can assist with as part of as a committee in this. And anyway, I mean, what if the average recession lasts about 10 months, right?
And they can't all agree
In
whether
addition to all the world events and everything going on. This is just the start, right? So I think that's quite appropriate. Will that assist you, Kristen, in going forward on this?
Yep. Steph, are you able to just read that recommendation just for clarity one more time?
Sure, but it's been voted on. That the committee
it's in the Zoom.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure that I know that we're clear. Liam and I are going to reach out to our.
No, it says council direct staff to seek information. So you guys can decide how you're going to do it.
Yeah. Liam?
I guess I'm wondering, like, because the committee can't direct staff, because I mean,
that's right.
Yeah. I mean, do we need a council direction?
Yeah.
I'm emailing Peter right now.
Okay.
Actually, you can direct staff. The CAO can direct staff. So
yeah. Okay. So great.
It's nice to have it on the.
Should we recommend that council and or the CEO?
Then this motion is going to have to come to council and everything else. I mean, we've got Liam and Kristen both here, and frankly, it's part of their job description, as far as I'm concerned, to go and get advice on investments.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's fair. So why don't we take the direct?
The resolution.
The resolution is helpful, though, just to alert other members of council that we're doing this and.
Yeah. So why can't we just have the minutes say the CAO and CFO advise that they will seek information from Municipal Finance Authority and other local governments to help inform next steps regarding investment strategy.
Yeah.
The actions underway, and they said they were going to.
I like that, and I could bring it up in a verbal update in the public portion of the meeting.
Okay. Perfect. So that's we're basically amending the resolution.
We're not having it. We're putting a statement in saying that the CFO and the CAO.
Okay, you're right. Yeah. So it's not okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good point. So are we finished with that particular point?
Yeah.
Thank you. We'll now move on to 5.3.
Fred.
Discussion revised. Here we go.
Sorry, Fred.
I'm the wrong one. Sorry. Go ahead.
You need to rescind that motion. It's been voted on.
Okay.
Oh, right.
Okay, rescind that motion. Joyce?
I
Allison?
withdraw the motion. I propose rescinding the motion, however you want to
Whatever
word
the
it.
wording
Steph,
has to
just
be,
do
yeah.
it. Okay.
Yeah, all in favor? Yeah, okay, we're good. Thank you.
Thank
Now
you.
we'll move on to 5.3, discussion revised community center operating plan. Again, Kristen. Again, a link was provided to the original draft business plan from August of 2020. And obviously, circumstances have changed rather dramatically from that time frame. And so, Kirsten, if you'd like to report on that.
Certainly. I don't have anything to report on as far as additional work completed on the operating plan to date. I think this conversation actually links really nicely with discussion topic 5.4, which is like a calendar of what are the highest priority items for staff to work with the committee on. There's actually 2 operating plans that are critical that I think need to be really punched up to the top of the priority list. One, of course, is the community center operating plan, but the second is the composting plan and the operating plan for doing the compost facility. If you recall in the budget, we kind of kicked that can down the road. We got a few extra months extension on the grant in order to really start that project. Liam, Bonnie, Carla, and I met with the contractors down at Bowen Waste to just kind of restart the conversation around composting. And I think the general consensus from that meeting was that things have really changed in the environment of volumes and what that original operating plan was based on. So we need to undertake a new operating plan, taking into account current costs, current supply chain issues, just the current environment under which we'd be working, and bring that forward to council in the fall to really have a full conversation about that and whether that needs to really change things when we're doing our budget development for 2023. So Liam, I don't want to speak without giving you your due to kind of add in on that. But for me, from the finance perspective, are 2 critical pieces that
Rob,
need to
can
be
you
done
mute
right away
yourself?
are the business case for the community center and the business case for composting.
Just if I may, Chair, just to
Yes,
follow up.
please.
I agree with Kristen that we really need to zero in on both of those, and we are, and we need much more clarity now that both of these projects are well, the composting project hasn't actually moved forward yet, but so the community center project is critical that we get that work done, and with the composting project, I really want to get that work done before we pull the trigger to advance.
Yeah.
Totally.
And though I do want to say, and this is where Kristen and I may have to agree to disagree a little bit, that the composting project business case may not be as favorable as we would like from a financial perspective, but I do believe that it is the right thing to do. And so in the way that we have conducted our business throughout the country for however long we've been around is always disassociated the externalities of the environment. And I believe that we have to take that into consideration. The notion of trucking our compost to a sorting facility in North Vancouver, which then goes to Pemberton, which may then be changed and go somewhere else, it mathematically makes no sense from an environmental perspective. And if it costs us $100,000 more a year to compost on the island, then so be it, in my view. And that is a question that we need to be able to answer and bring to council so that they make a clear decision. So I agree with Kristen 100% that we need to understand So we don't go into it blindly and find ourselves taking a loss when we've told that, no, we're going to be making a gain. So because we need to be able to know that eyes wide open.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we disagree on anything, Liam.
Oh, okay, good. Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got a number of hands up. I'll start with Allison. You're first.
I just had a very simple question that's really nothing to do with discussing the issue. But when I opened up the link to the community center draft business plan, it's full of black underlines, black redacting. So I don't know if does everybody else's have the same thing? It's the old business plan. It's just full of blacked out.
I didn't see mine. I think was fine. I looked at it.
The one that
yesterday.
the one that is linked on this agenda.
Yeah.
I don't have any redactions.
I didn't have any redactions.
Yeah, I mean, look
On
at
the
mine.
agenda is included on the website.
See, it's just covered with black lines.
Oh, strange.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll try opening it up on the laptop instead of my iPad and see if that makes a difference.
Okay, Michael.
Yeah, just on the composting, whatever we decide to do or not do, Liam, this has become a bit more of a subject of general conversation in the community lately. So whatever it is we decide to do, we do need to communicate, even if we're taking longer time to evaluate. But we need to tell people what's going on in terms of composting.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. John?
Thank you, Fred. Yeah, in terms of the composting, and if there could be $100,000 loss, I guess I'm just looking ahead to the financial position of the municipality in the next 2 or 3 years, and I think it's going to be a bumpy time. So I think even $100,000 potential loss on composting is an issue. And we've got other priorities, which then my second comment is about the community center and its programming. I mean, one of the costs that's, and I don't know if it's been fixed yet, is the fit out of the community center, buying all the furniture, fittings, fixtures, mats, the exercise equipment, all of that is probably still to come. And that's certainly in this current environment is subject to inflationary pressures. And so I think, I don't know whether the 20% or sorry, the contingency for the community center includes changes in costs to the fit out equipment. But I guess that's something we need to get on with the programming to fine tune to make sure when the community center does open, we obviously match the programs to the community needs at the time, because those two are changing. I think we're seeing our island population perhaps shifting a bit from what it was 5 years ago or more, when people were envisioning the community center and what it should do, to the people that are actually landing in homes now. So I'm concerned about the costs on both those centers.
Right.
Thank you.
Chair, if I may respond
Yes.
to, so thank you. Good question, John, especially about the what we call furniture, fixture, and equipment, FF&E. And so there is, the FF&E is broken up into two components. Some of it is embedded within the contract fixed price, and some of it is owner supplied. And a lot of it will be coming from the current municipal hall and our recreation facilities. And so we're not getting brand new spin bikes. We're not getting brand new yoga mats. We're not getting brand new desks. But there is a lot of elements that we will need to fit out, like the furniture for the community lounge area, for example, and there's all sorts of little bits and pieces. And so Jillian and I are tasked with managing that. And so we will be seeking, contracts or purchasing for all of those little bits and pieces. And in part, we may be looking to, the knick-knack nook or like wherever we can for things. And so it may be that we don't have the like that everything is brand new, spanky, like top of the line stuff that you might find in a West Vancouver or North Van type facility, but that we start off with something that is make do, and then over time we improve those. But that is squarely on our radar, and we know that we have to solidify that very soon, so that we make sure that we have all of the equipment. And one of the things that we are trying to figure out right now too is like, okay, where do we store these, this FF&E, because we want to purchase a lot of it in advance, like so that we're not waiting to the facility to be done and then purchase it. And you can't store stuff in the facility while it's being built. So so we're trying to figure out where we're gonna. So if anybody's got a big barn or warehouse that they
I got a barn.
Okay.
I got a fire hall.
There you go. Yeah. Hey, there you go. You might very well have an empty fire hall. There you go.
I'll up you one fire hall.
John, is your hand up for a follow-up, or is it separate? I'll come in because Rob's got.
Yes, it is a follow-up. Just, Liam, I've over the years bought a lot of furniture for our amenity buildings in the projects we built, and unfortunately, the furniture is bulletproof, and because you don't want to be replacing it a year later. So you're not going to be getting stuff from Knick Knack Nook. You're standing there.
Yeah, I've been a bit facetious on that one.
Yeah,
sorry,
but no, you're going to be
yeah.
sitting. I presume there's an interior designer or someone involved, and this stuff is custom made. You don't go to IKEA or anything to buy it because you're trying to buy something that's not going to look ratty in 3 years because you've got this amazing brand new building.
Mm-hmm.
And so the only reason I'm doing the follow up, and I heard you, but unfortunately, the reality is, you're probably going to spend more than you anticipate because at the end of the day, everyone's standing there saying it's got to be done right.
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah, just dovetailing a bit on what John was saying on both projects. The community center one, when I looked at the early operating budget, I think this was when Shauna was there. Definitely some concerns around staffing levels. Like I thought they were very low. So I think that will be something to make sure we got a realistic picture of staffing of a facility. And just having seen new community centers open up, there's this assumption that, it's brand new, it's going to be really cheap up front because we don't have to fix anything. Well, it's actually the opposite. The newest facilities usually have the highest cost up front. So I think we just need to have some awareness around that. And also, penny rich, pound foolish. If you put out a crappy spin bike and nobody wants to use it, you got this amazing building and you saved a little bit of money and you're probably paying more repairs anyway down the road, and then people don't use it. So just a bit of caution around that. The compost facility, I would have concerns spending an extra $100,000 on that a year. I've already had some calls from people that would be using compost, or that say they would be using compost, and they're already saying, well, but we don't want banana peel stickers on here and this, and can you hire somebody to sort all of that out? And so my worry is that we're going to do all this work on island, and then we're going to be shipping it off island to sell to the lower mainland or dumping it somewhere on the lower mainland. And that's sort of what happened with the wood chip thing at the health center too, where they paid $9,000 to eventually ship it all off island. So just, I'm very, that's a project I think we need to have come in eyes wide open and also really be realistic about usage on island or demand on island for the compost, which I wish there was, but I'm a bit pessimistic on that. And the worst case scenario is we spend all this energy processing it on island and then we still got to ship it off island. That would be the worst of both worlds. So just some caution around both of those projects. So I'm glad, Kristen, you're keeping an eye on those because they're definitely two that are top of mind for me.
Okay, Joyce? And then Kristen.
Just have to make comments about both the compost and furniture. compost in relationship to the wood chips from the health center, if there'd been people who were involved in making the decision about the wood chips, who use wood chips, they would have not made the wood chips as large as they are. I mean, you need to have the right, it needs to be done right. We have people on island who are gardeners. We need to make sure that they are a part of the composting group so that the usage is very clear and that we're able to make sure it's going to work. People who complain about banana peel stickers should be part of the committee to figure out whether it's worth it to have the banana peel stickers. No, I know, but if they understand the cost, maybe they wouldn't complain about the banana peel stickers, which is a ridiculous problem. I'm just saying we need to make sure we have the right people involved in making these kinds of decisions. And it makes it harder to have the diversity on the committee. On the other hand, I really believe we get to a point where we can actually use it. Second thing about the compost, we do have our trucks coming back on island empty. And I believe that they could probably pick up some green waste and bring it over, and we can charge West Vancouver for some of it. So make it a money-making thing. And what was the other thing I wanted to talk about? Was composting, and what was the other thing that we were talking about? I'm losing it.
Community center.
It's a community center furniture. We have incredible people on this island who are involved in all sorts of design work. Maybe we don't, I agree with John. I mean, we need to have things that aren't going to fall apart, but there are companies all over the Lower Mainland that are making their places look more beautiful and getting rid of stuff that is excellent. I believe we have people on island who would be able to ferret out that kind of furniture to help us with a perhaps shorter term, but equally bulletproof. So let's remember who we have on island. We've got incredible talent. Let's use it.
Okay, thank you, Joyce. Rob, is your hand still up or are you?
No,
done?
no.
Okay, so I think we'll conclude that part of the conversation right now. Oh, Kristen, do you have some? I saw your hand up briefly. You put it down though. Is you okay?
It was mine.
I just wanted to just reiterate that I didn't want to get too far down the road of having a conversation, but I wanted to reiterate the fact that those two things are going to the top of the list of the priority list, because there was, there was a work list that's quite involved. For example, we've got the terms of reference still, we've got updates of policy work to do, the budget policy. I saw permissive tax exemptions was on that list, and purchasing policy and a fees and charge bylaw. Like there's a lot of work to be done. I really just brought this up so that I could just advise the committee that these two things, given their budget implications and the timing of them, I think from a staff perspective, we need to catapult these to the top of the work list. And some of those things
We'll
that
address
have
that
been hanging around on the list are still gonna unfortunately drop to the lower.
I
priority.
appreciate that. I was going to bring it up. I'll bring that up
Thank you.
next. Allison, was your hand up or are you?
Well, I
Okay.
was just going to add to Joyce's comments about, with all the downsizing that's going on in head offices and everything in Vancouver, there may be some good quality stuff available for not a lot of money.
Yeah, those are all marble top desks though. Anyway, okay, so let's move on to the next point, please. 5.4 was a discussion of the calendar. And obviously we haven't had an update because of circumstances. It's been quite a long time, knowing that we really have operated off that to some extent in a situation where it's been a year, of course, since Kristen's predecessor departed the municipality. So we have a number of outstanding items that were identified. I think rather than spend an hour right now trying to go through it, I think that we have already identified two priorities Kristen has brought forward, which relates to the community center, relates to the composting operation. Of the things that were otherwise identified, it was our terms of reference. It was basically the DCC bylaw was an outstanding item. Budgeting principles, asset management update, permissive tax exemptions, purchasing policy update. And those were the primary ones that were included in the 2021, which is our most recent reference. If I can suggest, and I'll open it up maybe this way, that we take the two priorities that Kristen has now identified specifically to be addressed by the committee going forward. In addition to that, I think we have to deal with the DCC bylaw going forward specifically. And I think that obviously investment strategy will be addressed in due course. But I think the other ones we should push off for the moment until to be reviewed at a future meeting. But let's bring those ones forward. And also look to reinstitute the meeting schedule. In a normal year, we would normally have 2 or more meetings in a year. I would suggest that we would have perhaps 3 during the balance, plus a special meeting if we do have one as it relates to investment strategy. So I'm thinking that at least is a starting point, and perhaps Steph, in due course, we can come up with some prospective dates for 3 meetings this fall. I mean, once you a chance to maybe speak to Kristen and Liam as to how that will balance their requirements going forward. So we have the normal, and what I'm saying is we have the normal things that we do in our meetings, which are identified and really are unchanged. But we do have some specific projects that we will be dealing with. Is that okay as an approach? We will just make a notation of the other items that will not be immediately addressed, and we'll put it on a list for future consideration. Liam and then John.
Or John was before me.
John?
Thank you, Fred. Kristen's going to be producing quarterly reports. As indicated earlier, perhaps our timing should be whenever those reports are due to be published about the status of our budget. So we could automatically set 4 meetings a year based on the timing of those as a starting point. And then there might be an infill meeting here and there if one of the special projects that we're working on runs over. But our next meeting, is our next meeting going to be in 4 months, which would be when the next quarterly
Normally would
report,
probably
3
be
months,
would be in September.
Yeah, so our next,
But I think we're also playing a bit of catch up this year. So that's why I'm proposing an additional meeting within our schedule. But again, my comments are, I agree that with what you're saying, that we should schedule them to when available reporting can be provided by staff. And also we also get into timing around audit prep and things like that. So I don't want to suppose or that I know the answer to that right now, but I think that's a takeaway, and maybe that can be distributed to the committee for consideration. Liam? Thanks,
Chair. We also have a municipal election October 15th, which will actually, if I'm not correct, bring this committee to a close, and the new council will reappoint a new committee. Correct me if I've got that wrong, anyone. But
No,
pardon me?
Did you look at the terms of reference?
I didn't know, but I'm just it was my assumption. I'm not sure if that's
Yeah,
if,
no, the
if
terms
committee
of reference for all the committees set the committee terms, and sometimes they have no relevance to council elections.
council
Right.
members may change, but the volunteers are on their own.
Right. Okay. So the committee remains in effect, but council will have to appoint new members to represent council. The public membership remains the same. Okay. Okay. That's good to know. I just wondered though, that would that impact the ability to then schedule or post meetings?
Probably.
Probably not as it relates to meetings up to the date of the election, but obviously where that's going to apply is when we're doing the pre-audit and stuff like that in December, right? But I think the things we're talking about here, or at least the priorities that were initially identified, are things that should be done maybe prior to election time. We're talking about three things basically, right? The priorities, which are the community center, composting, and DCC as the top priorities right now. How's that? Everybody okay with that? John?
Thanks, Fred. The election starts really September 1st. It's October 15th. So anything we're doing after September 1st as a committee really, has political overtones, and a lot of committees somewhat stand down during that period. So that's something we should discuss now, is how active we would be as a committee in the months of September and October.
Well,
I just looked up the terms of reference. And the term of office of committee members shall be up to 3 years until the first Monday in December following a general election. The finance committee was geared to elections. So, but of course, it's not 3 years anymore, it's every 4 years. So that's just something that needs to be fixed in the terms of reference.
yeah, on that, we can do that in due course.
So basically, given the new election time frame, it wouldn't be the first Monday in December, it would be the first Monday in November. If
Yeah.
we were to assume that.
Yeah, and that would allow time to schedule a first, pre-audit and stuff like that.
Well, pre-audit's usually done in January.
Okay, well, I think part of it was discussion of priorities, but yeah. Okay, Liam?
Just following up on John's comment, this will be my first municipal election to go through, so I don't really know what the tone and tenor is like, but yeah, that's right. But from an agenda point of view with operations and council strategic priorities, we require there's effectively 3 more council meetings, well, 4 if you include Monday, and we need all of those from a like a purely operational perspective. And so while it might feel and look like silly season, we intend to be fully operational, getting work done right through to the end. And so I would hope that the committee could operate in the same fashion that we expect council to.
Okay, just so we're aware now, we're running out of time here as it relates to the schedule. And so unless there's something particularly pertinent right now, I think we should move into our closed meeting quickly and address that.
No. I'll move to closed.
Thank you. And Michael seconded. I don't want to read it out, but it's the recommendation provided. Do I have to read it, Steph? No. Okay, we won't read it. Let's move on.